Everybody. So our group decided to do a presentation on the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. This presentation will be given by myself, Dustin, along with Sydney, Liam, and Tatsu. So a quick overview. I'll be talking about an introduction, just the general events surrounding the accident and what caused the accident. Tatsu will talk about a couple of ethical theories, telling us whether NASA was ethical and unethical in their decision-making process that led to the accident. Then Liam's going to come in, talk about some objections to these proposed arguments, and then Sydney's going to wrap it up with a conclusion. So, speaking very generally about the accident itself for a minute, the Space Shuttle actually launched on its 20th mission in 2003. Upon the launch, some foam actually detached from the shuttle and caused some damage to the left wing. Reports were sent up to NASA's chain of command about this, but ultimately nothing was done and no images were taken, and the mission went on as usual. During re-entry into the atmosphere, the damage caused to the left wing actually caused the shuttle to burn up as it re-entered the atmosphere over Texas. So, speaking on what caused this accident, well, the CIAB, which is the Columbia Accident Investigation Board, was stood up within hours of the accident actually occurring. And they found two root causes as to why the accident occurred. On the physical end, a piece of foam was attached, damaged the thermal protective system in the left wing, and caused that wing to melt upon reentry. On the organizational end, though, they found that NASA has an absurd safety culture where they analyze future risk based on prior success. And what they did in this case was foam falling off the shuttle during launch was actually a common occurrence. What they said was, oh, okay, well, this has never caused significant damage in the past, so why would it cause significant damage now? And then let things go on because of that. And on top of this, they had systematic barriers that prevented communication of safety information. They had other schedule pressures, like they were trying to coordinate with the ISS at the time. They also had other budgetary constraints. And it was all of these organizational reasons, these systematic flaws within NASA that led to them not obtaining further imaging to analyze the damage and try to get these astronauts back down to ground safely. And I will pass it on to Tatsu now to talk about NASA's decision-making process and whether it was ethical or unethical.
So for our first ethical theory, we focus on deontological ethics. And this normative ethical theory focuses on how people are obligated to follow the rules or duties which help distinguish their actions as right or wrong. And looking at the failure, the officials at NASA identified the damage to the wing as an acceptable risk. And it is nearly impossible to have a project go smoothly with no problems. Basically difficult to have something perfect, and there will always be different issues. So NASA thought that the damages were acceptable and it wouldn't affect the mission, as the astronauts were able to conduct their research while in space. They also followed the safety protocols and procedures that had led them to the decision of the acceptable risk. So the intermediate conclusion is that under deontological ethics, NASA officials followed all safety processes and never broke any rules or duties when coming up with their solution. Therefore, NASA's decision was ethical. For the second ethical theory, we focus on utilitarianism. And this normative ethical theory focuses on the outcome and how our actions are right or wrong based on its outcomes and consequences. The greatest good for the greatest number of people. For coming up with the answer for the damaged wing, NASA formed a team called the Debris Assessment Team, DAT, and they only had 3 days to come up with a solution. They only had limited imagery of the damage and requested extra imagery from higher authorities, but it never went through and was denied. At NASA, during the Spaceship Columbia mission, it was said that there was a lot of management issues as well as broken safety culture due to scheduling pressure, which contributed to overlooking the damage on the wing. So under utilitarian ethics, NASA didn't act in a way that the outcome brings the greatest good by denying the extra information for solving the dilemma. Therefore, NASA was unethical.
Thanks, Tatsu. So here's our potential objections to our ethical theories. The objection to our deontological theory is that it could be argued that if the request for extra imagery was actually approved, the crash could have potentially never happened. Even though it was identified as an acceptable risk, it could be argued that the denial of extra imagery is against deontological values, therefore making their decision unethical. Our objection to utilitarianism is that because of systemic barriers in place at NASA that hindered the communication of safety information, the issues rooted in the downfall of this launch were never truly communicated or known by the team as a whole. Because of this ignorance, each team believed they were following all safety procedures and assuming an amount of acceptable risk. Because of this, according to ethics of care, this decision was ethical. And now here is Sydney with our conclusion.
Thanks, Liam. And so for the conclusion, the shuttle was announced for re-entry on February 1st, 2003, and NASA was informed about potential damage to the left wing caused by foam breaking off. And with that information about potential damage happening, NASA officials decided to decline the request, which sent the shuttle into re-entry. On re-entry, a piece of foam broke off, causing the shuttle to lose its left wing and break apart all over Texas, which is what they were informed could happen. And so, under deontological ethics, NASA officials followed all the safety precautions and rules, which led to their decision. And so, the decision was ethical. And under utilitarianism, NASA didn't act in a way that the outcome brings the greatest good by denying the extra information for solving the dilemma. And so, the decision was unethical. And for contribution, Dustin did the overview, Space Shuttle Columbia accident, and what caused the accident. Tatsu did the ethical theory 1 and ethical theory 2. Sydney did the conclusion, and Liam did the objection. And here are our references.